Hey guys, got kind of a cool video for you today. One of my buddies, Gary from Wisconsin, came down last year and did a lot of scouting during the summer and springtime of 2020, and then ended up coming down here and shooting a buck opening day here in Indiana, which is October 1st. And I have really cool recovery footage of that deer, and he's back down with me today, and we're going back to the area where he shot his buck, and I was just going to have him like walk through kind of his thought process and why that nice deer was there early season in Indiana. In October 1st, it can be real tough. The deer typically are off their summer patterns, and they're not real patternable. So yeah, we'll go with him back into the spot where he killed his buck and see how it all came together.
So this was my first out-of-state bow hunt ever, and it started off actually in March. I came down here, and Josh and I and a couple of friends did some winter scouting, and we got into this section and noticed a lot of rubs and a lot of big tracks. So we started off there, and I fell in love with this one particular area and decided to drop a few cameras in here, 2 cameras actually.
Gary's first camera was located in this area and was positioned over an active scrape we found while scouting in the winter. If you find a active scrape specifically near bedding, you can really increase your odds of seeing a mature buck during daylight hours. We found bedding on these 2 points within 100 yards of the active scrape that's marked with the X on the map. Gary entered the area coming from this direction, just outside of view of the deer that would have been bedded on the points. Later on in the season, this route may not be an option since the foliage would be down. The wind was coming from this direction over the deer's back, giving Gary the advantage of having the wind in his favor when he was walking in.
I noticed that this scrape right here was opened up, and I kind of stopped right here and I was looking around. There was a lot of, you could see traditional rubs all over in here, but I knew there was a lot of fresh sign and there were some big tracks in here. So I decided that this is where I wanted to set up. So I kind of stood just like this, but actually just a little closer to the bank so my scent wasn't on the trail, and kind of looked around to see what tree I could get into and to jump into. And as I stood here, there was about 120 to 125 inch 10-pointer that was about 30 yards away with a doe I didn't realize, and he took off real white racked, just a gorgeous looking deer. But I was like, I might as well push in a little further.
So yeah, that's what kind of, as Gary walked in here, and to know how far back in here are we? Like a mile maybe?
Yes.
Yeah, and then where he ended up shooting the buck was another mile and a half. Believe me, I know I helped drag the deer out. But so this is what he saw when he first came in here, and it was unseasonably cool on October 1st here in Indiana. And then obviously we had some rain, so those 2 factors that were kind of on your side when you're hunting early season.
So on that day, I came along the edge of a clearing, and we had a northwest wind. So actually it was actually coming from this direction here, and it just was perfect. There's a big, huge ridge that this trail runs parallel to. And when we came in here scouting in March, it was just all full of mature buck rubs. And I just knew right away that this is the thickest part of this area, that those mature bucks were coming down this trail between, just on the side of the ridge. So I put a camera on a scrape and I left it. And when I came in here, the wind was just perfect for this tree right here. And the reason why I picked this tree, because it didn't have this rough bark that makes a lot of noise. But I got into this tree and I literally could touch my stand. It was only 2 sticks high, and this bush, there's a tree here, was just enough to cover up to my belly button. It was just perfect. And if you look, there's a lot of understory here, a lot of underbrush, and then there's a big gap, because this is a creek bottom. There's a big gap, and then there's the treetops. So when that buck came in, he literally was looking down underneath all this understory, and then he was trying to look over through the open space. I was watching him, and he came down the trail just perfect after about an hour rain, and I thought to myself, well, it was dead silent. I mean, just dead silent. And I kind of watched him, and when he got into an opening over here, it was about a 25-yard shot. And here, this is the scrape that was freshly opened up a week before. My camera told the story. And sure enough, like I said, he stopped probably about 20 yards up the trail there, and I had a nice clear shot, and I took it. And after I took the shot, he kind of did this like mule kick, and he ran straight up this ridge here. I don't know if you can see how steep that ridge is, but all of a sudden it just was dead silent. So I'm like, oh, I don't know what just happened here. Everything happened so fast, like literally it was maybe 45 seconds of time that went by between when I saw him and when I made the shot and when he was gone. So at that point, I was trying to get some texts out to Josh and his dad and my cousin and my buddy, say, hey, I just shot a nice one. And so at this point, I still don't know how big he is. I just knew he was a really good mature buck.
So in the springtime, when we were scouting, there was actually some beds back in here on top of that ridge that buck was more than likely bedding on. It's a real steep bank where there's a lot of like little flat spots on it. That deer, I see bed there a lot. Something else, Gary mentioned he didn't have as many big bucks on those cameras that he had. That camera he had up closer to the parking spot, and we kind of were talking. Probably the reason why was the youth season that comes in before opening weekend here in Indiana. He actually had some youth hunters on that camera, so we're probably just assuming pressure, maybe push those big bucks back in here a little deeper, and then when he got back in here, we were probably like a mile and a half back here on this scrape we had marked in the springtime. That's whenever he saw it was open. So best of our knowledge, that's what we can assume. So I don't know, I think something else that Gary did that was really good was he had kind of a plan B back in here. You hate to walk a mile back into a spot and not have an idea of what you're going to do if something doesn't go your way. So cool. After Gary jumped the nice 10-pointer in the doe, he made the decision to keep going back further into public and took this route to get back to the next spot. Gary's second camera was located here over a open scrape. This scrape was well within 100 yards of some beds we found on this point during our winter scouting.
So I actually got down probably after about 20 minutes, walked over, tried to find my arrow. I couldn't find my arrow, but I could see some good blood already. So I backed out completely. I took all my gear out and then went back to the truck and then kind of sat where my cousin and my buddy was hunting and waited for him to get out. At that point, the cavalry showed up, and the video will show the rest.
Yes! Scary.
Holy cow, that has got a huge neck.
Hell yeah.
Oh man, Gary.
Nice job, dude.
Woo! Yes.
That's a good one.
Yes.
That's a really good one.
Oh, dude.
That's a really good deer. He's
He's been dead a while.
Yeah.
Stiff.
He came over here and just died.
Look how big that
before
base
he
is,
quit-
huh?
quit
Got a
running.
kicker.
Yeah, you went over that race. That was
Beautiful buck, Gary.
oh my
that's
word.
cool.
That's what we came here for. Public land buck. He's
Yep.
an old one. Look at that Roman nose.
Yes, sir.
I'll take this any day of the week.
Absolutely.
Look at the shot. How does it look?
Right up the top of the back.
Yeah, I shot him from the other. No, I shot him here, and I think he. But not probably now.
Yeah, I just was kind of taking it. I want to get real carried away. Man.
Spread.
Go.
Spread.
Go. Yeah. Brad, square.
You have the front,
Double B.
front legs.
Double B. Don't let him go backwards. How about that when we stop?
Okay.
Put your leg there. Hold on.
Now you're back.